Hello and welcome to Taking You to School with Dr. Tom Prichard. I'm your host, JP John Poz from the two-man power trip of wrestling. And of course, joining me is the star of the show, the former WWE World Tag Team Champion, 8-time Smoky Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champion, and one of the greatest trainers ever in the history of the business. He is the Doctor of Desire himself, Dr. Tom Prichard. Dr. Tom, how you doing today, sir?
John, of all the days I could be doing, I'm certainly doing. So it's a great night.
Nice.
The way I look at it.
Nice. How was WrestleCade?
Awesome. WrestleCade was awesome. We had a seminar the day before in AML with Coach Josh Gary being a guest. Steve Fry brought me in for WrestleCade, and I think we ended up with about 21, 22 people, which is not a bad crew for a Thanksgiving weekend. And it was busy, but very cool. Had a guy from JPWA all by his lonesome come up from Knoxville on his own to take the seminar, and he said I wrote it in the group chat I was coming and wanted to see if anybody else wanted to come, but obviously they didn't, which is okay. I totally understand. They're hearing from my musings through the week, so maybe they wanted to take a weekend, and a lot of them were home this weekend. So, but Nick was here, and he came, so that was good to see. A lot of guys I hadn't seen in a while came to WrestleCade, and man, it was a really cool weekend. I miss those events. I really did. Really, I still do miss them.
It's crazy that a lot of the young guys that you trained are now the older guys doing the conventions and stuff. I mean, that's crazy.
I didn't realize Johnny Curtis had been there with WWE 15 years. He had a 15-year career
Wow.
with WWE from developmental all the way on, and so more power to those guys. I couldn't be happier. So when I got there, yeah, I saw a lot of people, and one of the first people I saw was Mr. Hughes, and then Bill Dundee came running up, and he didn't come running up, but he came up and said hello. We stood there for a while, and he asked me about Camille from NWA because she was like 4 tables down. And he said, do you know that girl over there? And I said, why, sure. So I took him over and introduced her. And then she said, I think you know my boyfriend, maybe, or do you know my boyfriend, Tom Latimer? And I said, oh, my God, of course. Tom was one of the shining stars.
FCW babies. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he really was, man. He was great. And I think he's still great. So, very, very cool day. And then, as I looked, I was seated right next to Bill DeMott, which is it was a nice experience, a nice time. We laughed, we talked, we joked, and man, it was a great day. It really was. It was a great 2 days. So anybody who has any reservations about going to these things, of course, for whatever reason, whether it's seeing guys like Kurt Angle, Kane, Arn Anderson, Magnum TA, gosh, who else was in there? They were in another room, but of course you have people like that you don't normally get to see. And if you're a wrestling fan, by all means, get out and see them while you can, because as the years go on, some have been kinder to some than others. So. Man, it was very, very cool. I'm glad I went to this one. I'm really glad to see Eric Rowan, Joe Rudd, who I hadn't seen in a long time. And a lot of these guys are telling me stuff, like Enzo and, well, yeah, I mean, but I always knew Johnny Curtis and Bo, Taylor Rotundo, how they felt, and Heath Slater and guys like that. I saw Kurt Hawkins, Matt Cardona. But I didn't realize, until you get there and you're sitting there, you're talking, and you don't realize what's happened through the years. A lot of things that I've forgotten about. A lot of things I didn't even think about, and they're telling me and reminding me of all this stuff. So that's looking back on that, it's a really cool thing, because I never understood it when I was growing up. I never understood it when I was going through what I was going through. But no matter what you do, good, bad, and indifference, you can affect people's lives, and you have the power, whether you know it or not. No matter what you do, man, it's the smallest thing. Even if you just offer some encouragement now and then. So, I'm not perfect, but I'll tell you this, man. It made me think about a lot of things I do and say these days. So,
Yeah, it is crazy though to think like, oh wow, like Johnny Curtis, Eric Rowan, like all these older guys, not older, but like they're at the point where they're really kind of hitting the convention scene more and more because they're not in the thick of it. It's
bro, right,
but they all love you. They all love you.
15 years.
It's longer than Tito Santana's run.
Yeah, but we didn't have developmental when Tito was coming up. So, but John was in developmental for a while. Heath was in developmental for a while. These guys all get in there in their early 20s, and again, I didn't have the developmental system either growing up. I was mentored by guys like Al Madrill, Mondo and Chavo Guerrero, and Manny Fernandez, and Tiger Conway Jr. And oh my God. Talk about a contrast. Al was a miserable son of a bitch, and if he ever listens to this, Al, I love you, but God, you were horrible. You were a terrible mentor. And but you don't know that at the time. You just do what you can do, and I don't have anything to complain about. It was a great time. It really, really was. Growing up in the business and then getting to do this and see guys that you haven't seen in a while, and especially guys that you had a hand in helping. So it was very cool.
Does Al Madrill do signings? 'Cause I feel like that would be a real rare good guy to get. I feel like he doesn't do anything though, right? I don't think he does them.
Well, let me tell you.
Uh-oh, Al Madrill. Not a fan of the fans. Doesn't like the boys.
It's not that. I think that I didn't understand where a lot of guys were when they were 30 years old. When I'm 20 and I'm looking at guys like Al, he's only 10 years older than me. I think Tully's 10 years older, Arn and I are the same age. But a lot of those guys who grew up in that era 10 years prior to me breaking in, it was a totally different way of doing things. It was a totally different business, even back then. And when you had a young punk come in and try and make their way in the business, some guys were helpful. John Toles, Rich Hughes Dugan in L.A., and Pampero Firpo, some of the guys, the old school guys, who didn't have anything to lose, who were secure in their reputation, secure in their spot. They were pretty cool. Al could be a cool guy, but he was brought up so carny, I think. And he went through a lot of the stuff that you go through at a young age when you get in this business. And a lot of it will force you sometimes to take an unintentional detour. And I think that's what Al did. He just took an unintentional detour. And, he told me one time when he wrestled one of the first times in Mexico, he went across the border and he didn't have any undertrunks. And he just put his tights on, so you're supposed to wear underwear under your trunks or some kind of undertrunks. And Al had no clue. And the guys were making fun of him, and he was telling me that they were laughing at him back in the dressing room and stuff like that. So he got picked on. And I think that might have made Al somewhat that way. But I don't know, man. I mean, he just he was not a good mentor. Love him to death, but he didn't like a lot of people, and he didn't do it. I remember Len Denton told me a story that he called him up one time and said, can I speak to Al Madrill? And the voice on the other end said, Al Madrill is dead, and hung up on him. So, his real name is Felipe Garcia. So he didn't want to hear about Al Madrill anymore, I guess. Once he was done, he was done. I think he sold cars for a little bit, and whatever else he did, I don't know.
That was like the hoax I heard over the weekend that some woman told Bob Cook that Eddie Mansfield was dead. So he reported it like he's dead, blah, blah. A few hours later, he writes back, it's a hoax. That woman doesn't know Eddie Mansfield. Somehow she got, I guess maybe he changed his number. I don't know what happened, but some woman apparently said he was dead. And Bob Cook spoke to the woman, and not true. Eddie Mansfield is still alive.
Well, it's kind of like that catfishing thing Seth Rollins got cut up in, or the fellow that attacked poor
Oh
Seth got cut
yeah,
up in.
yeah.
I heard a rumor not too long ago, and I said, that's interesting because I haven't heard anything from anybody official on that, so or it didn't get any confirmation, man. So yeah, I heard that too coming back, and I thought, wait a minute, something here doesn't sound right. Because if Eddie Mansfield died, it would have been all over the place, right?
Right.
Right as we left. So it wasn't.
Yeah, it was for some reason a hoax. Why Eddie Mansfield? Maybe it was an ex-lover, jilted woman or something, saying that he's dead. I don't know. Weird. Very weird.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's a weird time we live in too with the internet and all this information that people can just put out there and nobody has to verify it, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you grab it and run with it, and you look like an idiot afterwards. But that's all right. One day just turns into the next, and I think, pardon me, the news cycles and people forget about what happened the day before, and it's moving so fast these days. That's all we can do. I'm reminded of the American Dream's famous quote: "Yesterday's dead, tomorrow's blind. We can just live one day at a time." I don't think you stole that from Willie Nelson, but either way, I like it.
Great line.
Sure
What did you
is.
think of, by the way, about the Seth Rollins thing? Him getting speared the hell out of nowhere from that random weird fan.
How in the hell does that happen these days? How in the world can you have such a well-oiled machine and nobody covering entrances like that? I mean, it's simple. I mean, and it may be
Barclays
something.
Center was the same thing. That remember Brett when Brett got tackled? That was Barclays Center too.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, so their security sucks.
Okay, so that might have something to do with it. I didn't know if it's WWE's end or the building's end or whatever, but that's insane. And in the old days, pardon me, it's been a long, cold weekend, by the way. And you would have to be really aware of that stuff because you didn't know if they'd be carrying a knife or a gun or something else. And thank God it wasn't that bad. Thank God it was just a spear, and thank God you didn't catch Seth on video stomping the guy's head in, because that's item or exhibition, whatever it's called in court. This is our first piece of evidence, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Look at this poor guy.
Exhibit A.
Yeah, Exhibit A. Yeah, here is a trained professional who knows how to use his body to hurt people, and you can say it's a work all you want, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm here to tell you my client has suffered severe stress and damage that he'll never, ever be the same again. So I could see that. Thank God that didn't happen, because he would have been in even more trouble. But either way, man, it's an insane place we're living in right now. So, and then when I heard this guy's rant, I saw it on whatever it was last week, and the guy is ranting about The Rock and Rikishi and Vince and everybody he's doing this for. So I don't know, man. Seth got some publicity out of it. I'm not sure it's the kind he wanted, but he got some. So there you go.
I feel like in the old school days, I've seen Savage beat the shit out of some fans. I've seen Randy Anderson, the referee, knock a guy clean out and then pick him up by his neck. And he's not a big guy at all, Randy Anderson, small guy, and pick him up and toss him. I've seen, I've seen a lot of guys. I've seen Cornette use that tennis racket.
Oh, my goodness.
Stuff like that. But I know maybe nowadays Seth couldn't, but man, I was like, I would have had a stronger reaction than he did. Maybe that's the way he should have handled it, but I would have had a stronger reaction.
I tell you, we were in Louisiana, and there was a guy named Steve Casey from England. He actually messaged me a couple years back and told me about this, reminded me about this, but I'll never forget this because this was crazy in itself. Steve Casey was a big guy, and Pee Wee, Randy Anderson, not a big guy. And it was Steve Casey, myself, and Pee Wee riding to the town. I had a car with a moonroof, and we had it open. We got off the exit. I don't remember if we're going to get gas, go to the bathroom, get something to eat, whatever it was. But we got off, and the light had turned green, and there 4 or 5 cars go ahead of us, and this one guy in front of us isn't paying attention. We honked the horn. and he shot us a bird, and then he threw his beer.
Oh,
Drinking a beer, threw his beer back at us. Wouldn't you know it landed right in the car. Casey goes, pull that mother over. Yeah, so he pulled over anyway. He had got out like he was going to kick somebody's ass. But as soon as he saw Casey, he went, whoa, hey, man, I'm sorry about that. And then Casey grabbed him like this, says, you son of a bitch, we ought to beat your ass right now, like that in his chest. And he's begging off. As soon as Steve let him go, Pee Wee went up and just open hand slapped him to the ground on the pavement. And he says, get up, you son of a bitch. You want to fight somebody? Fight me. He said, no, I'm so sorry, man. I'm so sorry. He says, get in your goddamn car and leave now before we all kick the shit out of you. So Pee Wee was a badass little guy. He wasn't a little guy. He would scrap with you. He really would. And I've seen him in some predicaments that he never shied away. He did not cower down to anybody. So, yeah, man, Cornette too. I mean, we got stories about Cornette for days. But Jimmy learned in Louisiana through the Cowboy and those kind of crowds, because they were crazy in Louisiana before Midnight ever got there. And Michael Hayes almost got shot in the Superdome. Going back to my good friend Michael Hayes, I just wanted you to know that he main evented at 20 years old in the Superdome against Junkyard Dog. So, didn't know if you knew that or not, but I got to remind you. Michael was not going to listen to this, but we'll still put him over.
You never know. Sometimes he does, apparently, which is interesting.
Good point. Actually, good point. Yes.
What does PS stand for, by the way? Michael PS. You ever
yeah. Pure shit. No, that's not it. It's purely sexy. Yeah, or putrid shit, whatever you want to say. It depends what mood he's in, or it depends what mood I'm in. When I say, hey, how you doing, Michael? So.
Hey, I was once with Cornette, and believe it or not, he does throw a pretty damn good right hand. I know it was like a working style, like Bobby Eaton style punch, but boom! I saw he pulled it out of the trigger onto me. Just missed. I was like, oh my!
You talking about Jimmy?
Yeah, Cornette.
Yeah, Cornette. Oh, he throws a hell of a punch. Yeah. And can't see
Bobby Eaton? Where the hell did that come from?
I believe Bobby taught him. Or at least he learned from Bobby. I don't know if Bobby actually physically said, Jimmy, this is the way you do it. But Cornette's a student of the game, no doubt. And he knows how to I think that's what really got the callus over his life. When he went to Louisiana, he might have got attacked a few times in Tennessee, but when he went to Louisiana, that's when he really stirred the pot. So whether it was a racket to somebody's head or a racket to his own shin, he can swing a mean racket and swing a mean punch too.
So it was interesting. I think it was Chavo Guerrero Jr. wrote like, "Oh, Seth Rollins, they wouldn't have done this in the old days. I can't believe you tried a front face lock. You tried the guillotine. He couldn't cinch it in. Like he was kind of like egging it on. I couldn't tell if he was trolling or not. So then he apologized because I guess everybody took it wrong. But then somebody wrote to him in the same thing. Wrote to him like, "Oh, if that was Randy Savage, he would have kicked the guy's ass." And then he wrote it. Oh yeah, exactly. So it's funny. He went ripping him, apologizing, ripping him again. So I don't know if he was kidding or not, Chavo Jr., but he was saying it wouldn't have happened in the old days.
Well, I don't know either, but at the same time, it wouldn't happen in the old days because you would have had cops around you. You would have had an escort. You would have had better security. It's not. I think especially if there was a threat, especially if you're in Brooklyn, especially up north. You guys are up north.
Remember WWE used to have those big security guys? Was it Dotson was the big guy, and then Jimmy Noonan was that big security guy that they had? Like their head of security, they had a couple really big dudes. It's like they probably would have got that guy before he got to Seth,
Well, maybe, but once again, he had the camera in his face as he's walking. I saw
he was totally distracted. Yeah,
I saw the clip, and so you're not expecting that because that's backstage. That's not even out by the side. This guy came running from the very back and hauling ass for a spear, and so yeah, it's not anything. Anybody could. It was the moment, and Seth did what he had to do. And if it wasn't tough enough for some people, yeah, it's tough. Too much. Too bad. ain't that tough enough? Wasn't there a song like that?
Great song, yeah.
Yeah, I beat the hell out of a Mark and throw him in the back just for you. Becky came out to check on Seth or whatever. And just to see if you were going to bring him back. That let me kick him some more too. But
Two people look like came out to check, besides the security, I'm like Jimmy Wang Yang, but like I saw Michael Hayes and Becky Lynch came out to check on things and see what was going on.
Michael was already
there.
a gorilla, no doubt. He was already a gorilla, and he just wanted to see what was going on. And he probably told Seth, "Here's what you do. When you get him down, you go do."
I think his strategy was, Terry, Gordy, kick this guy's ass. Kick this guy's ass. Yeah.
I've seen Michael stand up to people too, and I kind of went, "Really? Did you really do what I think you just did?" Because it was almost like a, no, I'm not even going to tell this story because he might listen. Then he's going to ask, he's going to question me that. I'm not. No, I can't because then he'll correct me, and he's not correct, and I don't want to argue with him. So I don't want to have anything go on record.
Well, where was Buddy Jack at this point? Was he there?
No. This was he and I as agents.
When
we were traveling companions.
Oh, all right.
Before he got a permanent seat on the plane.
Yeah. Damn him.
Yeah, no, it was fine, man. I got to fly on the plane a few times. I was flying on the plane on a weekly basis too, the old plane, not the new plane. But it was.
Yeah, but wouldn't you be talking shit too if you had Terry Gordy behind you?
Of course I would.
Talking shit to everybody.
I talk shit to everybody anyway. I just do. I don't care. Life is a journey, not a destination. So I'm taking.
I can see Buddy Jack doing the same thing, talking shit and saying, "Oh, Terry Gordy's right here."
Yeah, but I think Buddy would take a few shots before he'd go down too, though. That's what I think. Just from what I know about Buddy Jack, and I don't know a whole lot. I met him on just a few occasions, and I'm looking at him and saying, yeah, he's one of those crusty guys that you just don't want to underestimate. And I don't underestimate anybody anymore, but I wouldn't underestimate Seth Rollins by any stretch of the imagination. I think if it was one of those things and I'm sure he's going to keep his eye out now, especially, but it happened. Nobody was murdered, and that's a good thing. So he gets to move on and have a happy life, I hope.
So let's talk about the topic at hand, who I wanted to talk about for this episode. The greatest of all time, the GOAT, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. When did you kind of first meet Nate? And then we'll kind of go back and we'll talk about how he's in the news lately. But when did you first meet Nate?
I met him in '82 in Atlanta. Right off the bat. He was the world champion. Wherever he went. I've always got along with Ric Flair. He's the guy. He is that guy. And I think as we all get older, our minds change and things change and our perceptions of things change. I know mine has. I've forgotten a lot of things. I don't remember a lot of instances that were brought up this weekend. But once they told me, I went, "Oh my God, for real?" So they were telling me all this stuff, and I don't remember it that way, but that's the way they do. Thank God. And I think it's the same with Ric Flair. Once you've been out with Rick, he I don't know about today because I've been out with him for a long time, but whenever you go out with him, it's a memorable night. No matter where you are, he's going to have a blast wherever he goes, and whoever's with him is going to feed off that most of the time. I talk about I don't like going to the bar when it's like yeah, hey, here we are. But when Flair came in, he took all the attention, and then there was just that peripheral glow. And if there was anybody straggling or coming in and wanted to be part of this sphere of whatever was going on, and they were let in, then if they got a little restless and rowdy and off kilter, we made sure we threw them out of the spear and locked that imaginary door behind them. And if they tried to come back in again, usually had a few big guys or a few guys who would tell them in a very nice way, "You're no longer welcome here. Please leave us alone." And if they didn't get it the second time, that's when they got their head in the toilet, I guess.
Whoa. So with Nate, obviously, you first meet him. What did you first think of him, just as a like man to man? Like, this guy's awesome. This guy's crazy.
Awesome.
Like, what did you think?
No, he was awesome. I mean, look, I got into this because I didn't want to have a normal life, whatever normal is. I didn't want to get up at a certain time every single day and go to work the same place every single day. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on the road. I wanted to live on the adventure. I wanted to live on the edge every chance I got. And so did Rick. Rick woke up every day living for this. And how could for me, for a young guy, I couldn't have asked for anything better, because those are the guys I looked up to. Those are the guys that I looked at as larger than life, understood what this is, and went out there and did it. Going an hour every night. I know Dory did it, Terry did it, Harley did it, Briscoe did it. Excuse me. And that's why everybody burns out, because 4 years of going an hour Broadway pretty much every night, twice on Sunday, twice on Saturday sometimes, making your own travel back then. The champ didn't have to be there until about 9 o'clock. Most shows started at 8:30 or 7:30 or whatever. But, he was in touch with the office of the promoter, letting him know he'd either be there, by 9:30, because the main event wouldn't go to the ring until about 9:45 or 10 o'clock sometimes, or just depending on what time the show started. But still, you're going an hour Broadway every night, and you're the last guy out. You want to get something to eat, you want to have a drink or something, usually you're going to have to find it on your own, unless you got somebody who wants to go out and party with you and take you around and have a good time. So Rick was right on the money. Rick was a guy that could do it all at that time, and he proved it. I worked out in the gym with him too. That was the other thing. When we go on the road, and even at Titan Towers, He was one of those guys like Mark Lewin that I grew up working out with. He was nonstop. He was like a machine. And I would follow him in what he did. If he was setting a workout, or if he said, what do you want to do for tries today? What do you want to do? Well, shit. I don't know. Some push downs, some kickbacks. I don't know, Rick. Let's just try and see what we find. So, yeah, I thought he was great. And but I've not changed my opinion of him. He's like everybody else. He's human, and he says things, and he does things. That isn't always going to appeal to everybody. You're going to make somebody mad along the way if you're doing something right. I promise you.
So, obviously, Nate, great wrestler. He first, really, I only found 2 matches that you guys had against each other. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. But 2 matches back-to-back, 1984, October 21st and October 22nd, in Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. 2 matches against Nate. What are your memories of this? This got to be epic here. It's got to be classic.
Well, it was very cool for me. It's the only time I wrestled for the NWA Heavyweight Championship. And it was against Ric Flair twice. So that was when Don Owen. What a great man Don Owen was. He would run his promotion, and he would give young talent an opportunity. If the champion came to town, I believe that week it was Billy Jack in the Portland part of it, like a Tuesday night special. And then it might have been Rip, I don't know if it was Rip or not, Rip Oliver on a Saturday night. And then in between, during the week, it would be myself, Hack Sawyer, and I don't know who else. But, it was very cool. I thought it was great. And Rick was gracious, and he's trying to make me look a hell of a lot better than I looked. And I think anybody who saw the match will have to testify one way or the other, man, because I don't know what to tell you on that.
Pendleton, Oregon, and Molalla, Oregon, 2 random towns that I've probably never heard of.
Well, there's a lot of towns in Oregon you've probably never heard of. A lot of places in Oregon I've been to that I'm not so sure really exist. So, going through those mountains and man, that was a fun place to be. But when the champion came to town, it was the same thing, looking for something to get into, and we couldn't have baby faces and heels out back at that time. But when Rick was around, it was always going to be a fun time.
What was the length of the match? Do you remember how long the match?
Yeah, I think it was it was at least 30 minutes. You weren't going to do an hour with me, but we did 30 minutes or about 40 the next night too. Just sit, but you could work holds back then. And Rick was, while he was calling it, he would also ask me, "Oh, what do you want to do, kid? What do you want to do?" "Oh, shit, I don't know, man. You're the world champion. I don't want to call something stupid. How about one tackle, get it again? How's that? Is that brilliant or what?" No, but no, he was very cool, and I mean that's what I'm saying. He knew he was a world champion. He knew he was a top guy, and I wasn't going to take his spot. I wasn't going to do anything. So why would he have to be an asshole to me? There was no reason, and we got along great. So I know we went over 30 minutes the first night, and I think we went 40 the next, just to have fun, and that's kind of how Rick looked at it too. He probably wanted to get a workout in, and that's what we did.
What did he say to you after the match?
Thank you very much. That was it. Thank you very much. Man, I really appreciate it. It was an honor. It really was, and I mean that. But that was it.
With Nate, and obviously, he wrestled you a few days, and he goes probably for the main towns, like you said, Portland, it's probably Billy Jack or whoever is like the main eventer for the territory. Is he hanging out with the guys like the whole week? Is he just like partying with the guys and stuff?
I think he might have rode with Rip to the towns because they were both heels, but I really don't know. I don't remember who he rode with back then. That was back in 85, yeah, something like that. So I don't really recall, but I was a babyface, and we lived at the Bomber, not a hotel, the Bomber Motel in Milwaukee, Oregon, and that's where most of the guys lived if they were single and didn't have family around, and we did things that single guys and non-family people did. And don't ask me what that was, because the standard has really lowered since then.
Damn it, that sounds like a real reputable hotel too.
Of course it is. Well, what it was little log cabins in kind of a horseshoe, and they had a big bomber, like a large, huge plane outside as you pulled into this place with gas pumps underneath it, and they had a restaurant right there, Art Lacey's Bomber Motel. This was a bomber he flew in World War II, and that's where all the boys lived when they moved there. When first coming in, it's like an old flop house, I guess, just like the Falcons Rest was in Atlanta, Georgia. Nobody hears about the Falcons Rest anymore because that was, I think they did away with that in probably the 80s as well. But it was a place to go if you're single and looking for some activity after hours, I guess. At least that's the way I looked at it.
Were you hanging out and drinking with Nate a lot?
Well, not a lot, just when he was around. If he came to Atlanta, he came for TV, or he came for a house show, or came from the Omni. Whereas you were talking about Terry Gordy, Terry would say, "The Omni in Atlanta at the Omni." And I'd look at it and it wouldn't be the Omni, Terry, it's the Omni. But who's going to tell Terry Gordy? But I think he would, I think we went out to, there was another place down on Central Avenue, I think it was, in Atlanta, where the bars were and where the boys went. And there was a Crystal Palace. Now I'm trying to remember. The Crystal Palace was a after-hours establishment where you could read scripture or learn about the disciples if you wanted to. And it was a wonderful place for a good studious Christian boy like myself.
Now, didn't Flair once take you out, wear you out, and then make you throw up? Is that accurate, or is that inaccurate?
Where have you heard this from?
I don't know.
Where might you have heard this bit of information?
I don't know. I thought that maybe Nate may have taken you to the gym the next day and.
No. No. I've thrown up in the gym before, but not with Nature Boy. No.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That was not at the. No, we drank at the. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is in Birmingham after when Bruce was down. It wasn't at the gym. We weren't going to the gym. We'd all been in our rooms maybe 40 minutes, and Rick called up and said, "Squats by the pool," and hung up. And I'm going, what? But I knew it was Rick. And so Bruce just came down. He didn't do squats. He laid laid on the chair. And Kevin Sullivan, Rick, and I went through the cards. I'm sorry, we sure did. Not the bar, not the gym. It was by the pool at the Birmingham Radisson. And after we did the squats, I think we did squats first, I hurled, dove in the pool, got right back up. We did push-ups. I hurled again and went back in the pool, dove in just to. I'm sure those people were happy about that too. So yeah, we did do that. He did, yeah. That was just one time. But I've been in the gym with Kevin Sullivan before, and we just would get this flow going, and I didn't care. I went and puked, came back, and finished our workout. I'm glad I did some of that stuff because it took me through. A lot of stuff people don't want to know about. I mean, they talk about going to the edge and they talk about crossing the line, but you don't know really. Most of the people who talk about walking up to that line don't know they've even got there until they're way past it. Because I thought, man, if I'm doing this, it can't be that bad. But then I get to the point where I remember throwing up with Kevin. I threw up once by myself and continued until I was finished. There's no shame in that. I think it's actually it's that merit badge. You know, hell, You threw up, but you didn't quit. I sure as hell did. I've stayed up all night with Kevin Sullivan. God almighty, in Pensacola, and we went across the bridge, and Kevin keeps looking at me and says, "Are you okay? You okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." And we get in the gym, and he's looking at me and goes, "Are you sure you're okay?" So I think I'm okay. And I think we went in the gym on that day. Because this was after an epic night of, again, reading scripture and learning about the disciples, that I just was feeling horrible, but I wasn't going to let him call me a pussy, and I wasn't going to puss out. I just wasn't. That was the mindset back then. I was going to have a story. Kevin was going to have a story to tell, and when we see each other, he'll tell those kind of stories. And remind me of those nights. And then he'll look at me and says, "God, it's amazing we're alive." No kidding. You know, but that was, I mean, yeah. I hate to glorify those days. I hate to romanticize. But damn it, it was really a lot of fun. It was a different culture, a different world. Not everybody got offended at a poor little joke that somebody told, or you laughed at something wrong because for whatever, man. But it was a different way of going about things. And I hope somebody doesn't get on Twitter and talk about The Undertaker and guns anymore, because I'm not going to. But I will tell you, the guns were for the fans, and the guns were because it was a different place and a different era. So for all you little whiny babies, shut up. That's my rant for the day. Thank you.
I'm right there with you. So as far as Nate, why is he making you doing squats at random times during the day? He's got to get his workout in. He wants some company. What's going on?
No, that was his workout because we weren't going to the gym. We had to travel to another town that day.
Okay.
We were going to the gym in the morning, but he wanted to get it done because he had to go. I don't know if it was an appearance or what, but we had to travel. So instead of going to the gym, he had the cards. We did the cards in the morning out by in the sunlight, you know, when it's beating down and you haven't had anything to eat, but you've had about, I don't know, and no exaggeration, maybe 15 or close to 20 kamikazes. You ever had a kamikaze? To this day, I can't do
What's
the kamikaze.
in there? I don't think I've ever had one.
I have no idea what's in it. It's a kamikaze. I have no idea. I know what's in a slow gin fizz, slow gin and 7-Up, and I drank that until I got sicker than hell and can never even smell slow gin again. So there you go. You know, this isn't about me. This is about you. We need to discuss your situation, see, because I've taken care of mine. And I think Rick's taking care of his. At least I hope he has. Unless you're going to tell me he hasn't and something different, then I'll talk about that.
Seems like he has. I know he's been in the news lately because of Becky Lynch and Charlotte, which, who knows, is a little bit of a work, a little bit of a shoot there. Who knows about that? But, he does say, because he's got a podcast back out now, him and Mark Madden, about how Charlotte's not only the best female wrestler, she's the best male or female wrestler. She's the best athlete. And he really put Charlotte over, and he kind of ripped Becky Lynch a little bit, too, which I guess is fine. He basically said Sasha and Charlotte are the two best, and that Charlotte's the best by far. But it's funny he said Becky Lynch stole his catchphrase and everything else.
Well, he is her father. He's Charlotte's father.
Yep.
And Becky, was calling herself the man, right? So,
yeah.
For a guy like Ric Flair, and I wouldn't know because I've never walked in his shoes. I have walked behind him and I've walked side by side, but I've never actually tried those alligator shoes on. See how they fit, see how they move, and see what happens when where they take you. It's like a magic carpet. You put those shoes on, all of a sudden you're transported into Ric's life. But I think when a guy, and this is just my assumption, obviously, my opinion, but when someone like Ric Flair, who has done it all in professional wrestling, is a 16-time world champion, Edge stopped short of even tying the record. Cena stopped short of tying the record, I think, out of respect. Could be, I don't know. Again, my assumption. But when you've done all these things Ric's done, I don't think you can take into account two plane crashes, not one, two plane crashes, being struck by lightning. I mean, how does this happen? And he's still walking, while other guys have tripped and fell and died. Or other guys have drank themselves to death. And Ric would be out all night just nonstop. So when that happens, or when you see someone like that, they don't fit the definition of what anybody wants to consider as normal or sane, or whatever you want to call it. But we all live in our own different worlds. And when you go to work and you see your friends every day, or your acquaintances, or your compadres and people in work with you, and they may not be friends, but they're certainly just acquaintances, and you do know them, workmates, whatever it is. Everybody is expected to be nice and cordial and civil. And in professional wrestling, everybody's expected to be loud, having a good time, and boisterous and obnoxious and crazy and willing to go out to entertain people who want to have a nice 9-to-5 day and come home and feed the dog and have dinner and go to bed at a certain time. And no, I get that. I understand that. But I also understand the part of wanting to be on the stage, wanting to have a life on the road with these people who share that same passion. And Ric, man, he was passionate more than a lot of people in the business. But he was passionate. He was passionate and had that drive to become one of the best entertainers in the world. So, but whatever came across his lips, or whatever he said, whatever he might say in the future, look, when you get to the point is Ric 72 or 73 now?
I think he's 73, I think.
Okay. But at 73 years old, and I told someone else this the other day who's actually 83 years old, and I said, you have every right in the world to have your opinion. You have every right in the world to express yourself. Every right in the world. But you've got to accept the consequences that come along with that. So you can do whatever you want, but some people are going to like it, some people aren't. Do you care?
He is 72.
72? Okay.
Yep.
So when you get to that age and that stage, like a Ric Flair, and there's only one. There's only one Ric Flair. So I don't know who you can even compare to be who would be next to take that crown, because you can't do the same things he did back then today. And Man, I'll hit a sore point here too, but I'll say it. 20, 30 years ago, once again, yesterday's gone, tomorrow's blind. We can just live one day at a time. Did you have any issues going on? Of course. If you tell me you didn't back then, you're lying. If you're in professional wrestling, you made any kind of impact or you did anything of noteworthy experiences and people know about it, you're not all perfect, and they're not all right, and they're not all wrong. But that's not just in wrestling. We're finding out Hollywood. We're finding out in business. We're finding out in everyday life. There's creeps and there's horrible people. Ric Flair was probably one of the greatest world champions. For his era, the greatest world champion, obviously. But you had others who were great, and you had others who were crazy as well. They just wasn't all the publicity. There wasn't the internet. There weren't camera phones. There weren't people calling you. Well, there were, probably were, but calling everybody the minute it happened or filmed it the minute it happened. And that's where we find ourselves today. So what Rick would do in a bar, whether it would be pull up his socks or whatever it might be, I don't think that would fly today for many reasons, because we have become a much more civilized society. And if you look outside your door or you watch the TV, you could see just how freaking civilized we really are. And I think that's the part that really annoys me, is when all these people who believe they are the righteous ones, if you want to look in their book, let's turn a few pages first before we look at them pointing the finger at anybody, because they got to look in the mirror first. I'm not saying everybody's innocent. I'm not saying anybody's guilty. I'm just saying 30 years ago was a different world. 20 years ago was a different world. Hell, 5 years ago it was a different world. And Ric Flair is Ric Flair. He's not going to change except for what he has to change. He's going to say what he wants to say. He's going to be who he wants to be as much as he can. He's had the health scares. He's been through all that. So he's got experience under his belt. And I think he's entitled to say what he wants to say. He can feel however he wants to feel. Everybody's got that right. Just because you don't agree with it or somebody doesn't agree with it doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it his way. You got your way, I got my way. The right way, the only way, does not exist. So there. And I love the people who love to point fingers. I love the people who want to point out all the wrongs. And man, boy, he seemed a little off tonight. Let's see. Look at your own life. Let's talk about perfection there first. And then you can talk about somebody else. That's the way I feel about it.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm getting a cold here, too, which really sucks, by the way.
Oh, I hope not.
Well, I hope not, too. Because I've got
Although it is getting to be that season. It is starting to get a little chilly out there.
I've noticed that, too. That sucks.
So with Nate, what do you think, like, legacy-wise? Is he the greatest? Is he the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time? I know you love Dory and you love Jack Briscoe and stuff, but would you say Nate is maybe the best ever?
I think as a total package, Nature Boy Ric Flair is the world champion you want to have come out and display the robe, display the title belt, display the physique, display the perception of what your company is. And during that time, during his time as champion, all those ins and outs, the time he was, the time he wasn't, he was still Ric Flair. People still recognized him as Ric Flair. Even if WCW guys wanted to change him, cut his hair, and make him a Spartan, whatever it was, the idea presented to him, he was true to himself. Was he the greatest ever? I've heard that argument so many times, and I've also heard this answer, that you have to take it by eras. Jim Lundis was a huge draw in his day, but that was what, the 30s and 40s? And when I ask people, do you know who Jim Lundis was? No. You know who Bruce Lee was? Yeah, sure. Chuck Norris? Why, sure. Who doesn't? Well, then if you're in the wrestling business, why don't you know who Jim Lundis was? Why don't you know who Gotch and Hackenschmidt were? Why don't you know some of the stuff that came before you, some of the guys came before you? because it doesn't interest them like it does boxing fans or boxing students and guys who want to learn and are students of the game. If you're a student of the game, you'll know who Ric Flair was. He has cemented his name in this business. Dusty Rhodes. If you don't know who Dusty Rhodes is and you come to wrestling school and you really want to learn, or you say you really want to learn the business, you better know who Dusty Rhodes was. But he still is, because he's a force that everyone needs to understand cannot be duplicated. You can try and get close, but when it came to promos, when it came to passion, you had Dusty Rhodes, you had Ric Flair, superstar Billy Graham. My God, where are those guys today? Different time, different place. But it still holds true. We're still entertainers. You're still a performer. And you're trying to talk people into the building. Whether you believe it or not, I know there's more vignettes and backstage segments now, and it's a variety show, and it's not a 1 hour wrestling show anymore on Saturday afternoon in a studio. Not that at all. But the element is still there. The element of being a star. The element of being that guy. And there's a huge argument for Ric Flair being the greatest world champion ever. There's a huge argument. But there's a huge argument for Hulk Hogan being the greatest world champion ever. Hulk drew money. Hulk was certainly, he's established in the business as well. I mean, that name, you can't look up wrestling without knowing who Hulk Hogan is. I mean, you can, but you're an idiot if you do. Because both guys carried the ball for so long. And they had the company on their back. And I can't even imagine. I can only guess what that would be like. And the stress, the strain, I'm sure it was there. But even with that, they wouldn't give it up. They couldn't give it up, because this is what they were meant to do. Guys like Flair, Hogan, Dusty, superstar. So is he the greatest ever? I think you have to go back and look through the ages, and you got to look for the style of the day. And Dory Funk in 1969 was 27 years old, and they were trying to get that youth movement back then, and they were trying to sell wrestling as legitimate back then. And even in the world title matches, people would say, I know those first few matches are phony, but when they get for the world championship, man, now that's real. They're really going for that. And you think, how does that make any sense? It doesn't. But I heard that for years growing up too. So Ric Flair, whenever he went in there, and the chops and the bumps and all that stuff, I saw Ric. I'll tell you this story real quick. I saw Ric for the first time wrestle when he was being groomed in the Carolinas. He came in and he worked with Jose Lothario, and he did the arm drag sequence out of a leapfrog, drop kick, arm drag, and their timing was so off. But Ric just slid out of the ring, composed himself, thought for a minute, came back in, and they had a hell of a match. But when I saw him, it was kind of like seeing Bruno the first time, because Bruno came in the first time I saw him in Texas and worked with Mike York. Did not click at all. And I was really disappointed. And then I realized later on, hold on. Mike was trying to work Bruno's match, and Bruno was trying to do the best he could, and it just didn't mesh. And I think that's what happened with Ric and Jose, but they were both pro enough, and Jose had been on top in Texas long enough to understand what he needed to do. And part of being the world champion is knowing what you need to do next, and after that, and after that, and after that. And Ric was an expert at that, and I think he still is. Well, again, that's my opinion. I think he still understands how to put a match together. I still think he understands how to get a reaction from people, even without stepping in the ring. So
he is a master.
One of the best, no doubt.
Yeah. Great promo, great in-ring. I mean, he had the look, he had the charisma, he had the robes, he had it all. Had it down to a science, some of those matches.
When he walked into a place, people may not have known him if they weren't wrestling fans, but by the time he left, They knew who he was, and I'm sure he pissed a few people off along the way, but for the most part, he could be a very charming guy and throw money around. And when he left, everybody was happy for the most part. Not every single time. I'm not going to say that, but for the most part.
Almost seems like he might be more popular than ever right now, which is crazy to say.
Well, with all the nostalgia and once again, who else has what Ric Flair has or had? You look around and nobody really wants to be outrageous, or nobody wants to do these things, and everybody just wants to go back and play video games or whatever it may be, watch TV, whatever it may be. And that's just a lot safer way to do things, no doubt about it. But I remember way back, was it cowboys were smoking cigarettes? I know that, but way back in the, I guess, 50s, 60s, when everybody was smoking cigarettes before we knew they would cause cancer. So, you could get away with a lot of that stuff back then because they claimed we didn't know. Claimed a lot of stuff we didn't know was addictive. So just go ahead and do it. It won't hurt you. And okay, well, now we know. And the guys today are a lot smarter. They're saving their money. They're not going out being complete fools every night. Most of them are married. A lot of them are married, not all. But and it's okay. The guys without the families did stuff guys without families would do. And it wasn't frowned upon because it was a weekly town. And that's what happened with Rock and Roll Express and Midnight. When the Rock and Roll Express finally got to Louisiana, all the dynamics changed, and you had more female fans coming and things like that. So that was the draw. That was the appeal. It was a weekly town usually. And the whole model's changed. And can't do that anymore. Have I said that a few times tonight? You can't do that anymore? I thought so. But you can do some things.
There's no doubt Flairs had some of the greatest matches of all time. We were talking about not too long ago. Him and Steamboat. They had a great feud in 1989. So Flair, my God, you can name a guy, and he probably had a classic. Sting, Vader, Funk.
Well, Jack Veneno, the guy from Colombia, or where was it, Brazil? Where was Veneno? Veneno?
Wasn't it not Puerto Rico?
Guadalajara?
Jack Veneno, yeah.
Veneno, yeah. I mean, I saw that, and can you imagine that happening today? The people going that crazy, they were going to lynch Flair.
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic, yeah. But that was then. That was how it was. That was the culture. Again, that's why I say everybody can talk about how, boy, you guys were savages and, man, so archaic and barbaric with what you did. Okay. What'd you do with your life? I went and got a college education, and I'm now an esteemed doctor, and I have a beautiful office. Well, I'm glad for you, man, but that's not what I wanted to do. So, that's not what Flair wanted to do, that's for sure.
Hell no. Yeah. Let's get to the plugs. Get Dr. Tom's a great book, a pro wrestling curriculum, advice, suggestions, stories to help the aspiring pro get to the next level. Where can everybody get this book, Dr. Tom?
You can get that book at jpwrestlingacademy.com. On the front page, just click on that book. It'll take you to Amazon. Order it, and we'll go from there. jpwrestlingacademy.com.
So, of course, you go to Pro Wrestling Tees, prowrestlingtees.com. Get a JPWA shirt or get a Dr. Tom shirt. You can follow Dr. Tom on Twitter at Dr. Tom Prichard. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Dr. Tom, what else you got going on? Anything good?
Well, we got the last 2 weeks of JPWA coming up for the graduation 2021. This is going to be our last class for this year. And then we start back on January 3rd, 2022. And that's about it, man. I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break and start back nice and fresh in 2022.
Nice. Great stuff. As always, thank you, Dr. Tom. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Take You to School with Dr. Tom Prichard. See you next week, folks.